Good afternoon, everybody. Campbell Macquarie, Amvest Capital in New York City. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Inflection Resources. Inflection trades on the CSD as AUCU and as AUCUF on the OTCQB. Hope you'll enjoy today's program. It'll be available in replay mode about an hour after we wrap up, and you'll get it in an email, and also you'll get it at amvestcapital.com/replays. Q&A is always an important component of these calls, so please, I encourage you to send in your questions. Just use the chat function, the question pane here in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll ask your questions. Amvest Capital is a New York-based investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. Please note our disclaimer: this call is for informational purposes only. We're pleased to have with us today Alistair Waddell. Alistair, going to give you control presentation, and if you would turn on your webcam. Alistair's geologist by background and has over 25 years of exploration capital markets experience. He was the founder and former CEO of Goldquest Mining, and previously he was the VP of Greenfields Exploration for Kinross for some time. He's also the founder and chairman of Headwater Gold. Again, please send in your questions, and we'll ask them along with our analyst questions. Hi, Alistair.
Hello there. Thanks for having me here.
You have the floor. Everything looks good.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to learn more or get updated with Inflection Resources. Inflection is a company that's exploring for copper and gold in Eastern Australia, and I'm going to talk through our team and strategy and why we're specifically targeting these types of deposits in Australia. But it is an exploration company. We'll be making a lot of forward-looking statements, and just please be aware of that. So in terms of who we are and what we're doing, as I mentioned, we are specifically targeting copper and gold in Eastern Australia, most notably in mining-friendly New South Wales. We also have a high-grade gold project in far north Queensland. But a key takeaway here is we are drill testing aggressively a large portfolio of porphyry copper gold targets. And these are targets that have been generated ourselves, are 100% owned by the company, and targets were generated by an incredibly technical team. So we've got some tremendously experienced geologists that have been involved with the target generation, and we believe it's quite a unique story. As I mentioned, we do have 100% ownership of our projects in New South Wales, and we have in fact over 500,000 hectares of exploration licenses in that part of the world. So this is really where we are today. For the most part, I'm really going to be talking about our projects in northern New South Wales, but I'll touch briefly on our current gold project in far north Queensland. And furthermore, we have a large data initiative called AI projects in the southern part of New South Wales, where there's a lot of historic data to analyze and query and generate targets to. But ultimately, the focus of this discussion will be the northern New South Wales projects, which is part of the reason why we've been able to attract such key shareholders. So in terms of our share structure, this is where we are today. So currently it's 71 million shares outstanding, I believe around about 38 cents today. Trade on the CSC and the OTC, the QB board. But we're unusual in the fact for an exploration company, we've been able to attract good, solid institutional support, and lucky enough to have RCF, Resource Capital, as a major shareholder. They've been supportive of the company more or less from the very start and have just under 10% of the outstanding shares. But we've also been able to attract Sprott and Denver-based Crescat as well. But it's a very tight structure. The insider group has about 30% of the company right now as well. Talk briefly about the people, and we've got a nice broad mix of sort of capital markets and technical. Our chairman is Wendell Zerb, that's well known to the capital market scene. He was the former head mining analyst at Canaccord and also Pacific International, and very lucky to have Wendell as our chairman. And myself, Campbell mentioned a little bit about my background, but I'm very much an exploration geologist. Spent my whole career in the exploration business, both on the major side of the business and also on the junior explorer side, but completely in the exploration business. Other key person here, Carl Swenson, very technical geologist, former chief geologist for Normandy Mining, a very big, iconic Australian mining group. Stuart Smith here was the former specialist for all things copper related for Teck, and Stuart is based in New South Wales, and very, very happy to have him on board as a director, but a nice balanced board. And then furthermore, I'll talk a little bit about some of the technical people. Ultimately, this is obviously an exploration story, and really it's only as good as your geologist behind the scenes. We've been very, very lucky to work with a gentleman called Douglas Haynes. And Douglas Haynes, very serially successful exploration geologist. He was the former chief geoscientist for a very large mining group out of Australia called Western Mining, which later became BHP. But Douglas has been involved in a number of very big discoveries, and including the very famous Olympic Dam mine in South Australia, developed by operated by BHP. But very, very happy to have Douglas. And Douglas was the core person here, really helped us develop these targets, which I'm going to be talking to in New South Wales. But we've got a very technical team. Alan Wilson here, who's former exploration manager for Antofagasta Minerals. Mark Dugmore, former exploration manager for BHP as well. But very, very technically driven story, which I think is one of the key things that differentiates Inflection from a lot of other groups out there. So what are we doing as a Canadian company over in Eastern Australia? Well, we're targeting a belt of rocks called the Macquarie Arc. And this is a big belt of volcanic rocks, and it is the belt of rocks that hosts the principal copper deposits in Eastern Australia. It's the porphyry belt. But it's host to a number of very, very big mines, including Australia's biggest gold mine. This is Newcrest Mining's Cadia Ridgeway operation. This is located just to the south of us here. You can just see it with the red icon, Cadia. We also have Evolution Mining, and Evolution Mining is Australia's second biggest gold mine, and their flagship operation, the Cowal mine as well. This is a big gold mine, just like it further to the south of where we are. And then the third big deposit in the belt is a series of copper deposits called Northparkes. And these are big block cave underground type operations. This was a mine that was built by Rio Tinto and now being developed by China Moly and Sumitomo in the form of a joint venture. But the point is, the belt is host to some very, very big mines, and there's a lot of gold and copper occurrences throughout the belt. And we, as you can probably see on the map here, our exploration licenses are highlighted in that sort of black area. We are exploring the northern covered extension of this belt, and that is the challenge, but also the opportunity of being able to explore for and discover hopefully one of these big gold or copper gold deposits that are typical in the southern outcropping parts of the belt. It's just a simple graphic here, really to give you a flavor of the type of terrain we're dealing with here. So this is flat agricultural terrain for the most part, or cattle country. Point is, it's got a great infrastructure in place, a network of roads and power lines and infrastructure and things. But the reality is, it's a relatively low population density in this part of the world, and what it really translates into is very cost-effective, simple exploration for us. And our exploration dollars go a long way in this part of the world with no remote camps or no real seasonality to deal with as such. So it makes a very, very simple, cost-effective exploration program. And this really gives you a flavor of the tenement situation in New South Wales. Our licenses are there in the north, highlighted in that sort of pinkish color with the red outline. But as you'll see to the south of us, it's a real group of many, many different types of companies, a lot of junior explorers based in Australia, ASX companies, but we've also got some of the major miners. And this is really a key part of our strategy. When we developed the company, we really wanted to be exploring for types of deposits in a jurisdiction where ultimately the major miners want to own assets. So we're not doing this in some crazy jurisdiction that ultimately where you've got to convince a major miner to go and explore or potentially develop an operation. The miners are already here, and if you just look at some of the names on the list on the map here, it's Newmont, Newcrest, Rio Tinto, Evolution Mining, Fortescue, China Moly, Freeport, Anglo. So these are huge mining groups that are already actively exploring this belt of rock. So we believe if we have some success with the drill here, we're certainly in a nice position whereby the majors are already active here. But as I say, a key takeaway for Inflection is this 100% ownership of our exploration licenses. And we're very proud to have this sort of true district scale land position in the belt. So if there's a key graphic here that really explains the opportunity, this is it. And we've got two maps here that are the same scale. So on the left-hand side, we have a very simple geological map. The key belt of volcanic rocks is there, highlighted in the dark gray units, and the orange striped polygon there represents the sedimentary cover. So these are young sediments sitting on top of the older prospective geology, masking all superficial features of any underlying mineralization. And what really drove this whole initiative was a regional airborne magnetic survey flown by the government of New South Wales. And on the right-hand side of the screen there, you'll see a map of the same scale, but with just the regional magnetics on there. Now, what this really shows is the key belt of volcanics clearly extends underneath this sedimentary cover. Now, this is no great surprise. This has long been known about, but what this data set really showed it in tremendous detail, and it really enabled Douglas Haynes to build a beautiful geological model, extrapolating the known favorable volcanics from where they outcrop underneath the sedimentary cover. And that's kind of the key here, is building this beautiful geological model to basically figure out where the key sets of volcanics occur under this cover. But furthermore, what Douglas did in his targeting exercise, he recognized 22 very, very large features that he considered analogous with deposits elsewhere in the belt. And we've done this by looking at the known deposits and known occurrences in the belt, and we know where they occur in terms of their geological setting and their geophysical signature. And Douglas basically identified a whole series of these targets under the cover. So that's kind of the opportunity. We've got a large portfolio of very large targets considered analogous to the deposits located further to the south, which have never been drilled before. And that's a key takeaway as well here. These are brand new targets, and we're drilling things that haven't been drilled by multiple companies before. We really are looking to make a new discovery in a big belt of rocks known for these big mines. So that's the exciting opportunity from an exploration geologist perspective and an investor perspective. We really are looking for a huge deposit here by drilling the very first holes into these features that have been identified. And this really is sort of a state of the union map. So this constantly gets updated, but it really sort of explains our approach. These targets here on the map extend over about 200 kilometers from north to south. And we really are breaking new ground. These are big features here, and we believe having a very much a portfolio approach. So there's 22 very large targets here is really the secret to unlocking this. And the key takeaway as well is how we're approaching drilling, testing these various targets, and we're doing it in a very systematic and disciplined manner. essentially getting between 2 to 3 holes into each target, because these alkalic porphyry systems, these big porphyry bodies that we're exploring for, have got very distinctive features in terms of their alteration halos. And broadly, in a massively simplistic way, there is essentially concentrically zoned alteration around these things. So we're using the drill to drill through the sedimentary cover that's unmineralized and altered, essentially drilling short holes into the prospective bedrock and looking for indications that we are either in or proximal to one of these interpreted porphyry systems. And this is what we've done. It's a very disciplined approach. We've currently got about 10 targets remaining as part of our first pass program. And if you look at the map here, those green icons represent targets remaining to be drilled. The ones with the black icons and banners have essentially been drilled and killed, i.e. we drilled those 2 to 3 holes and tested the thesis. The thesis failed, we walked away from it. So it's a key part of this is being able to walk away from the targets as quickly as possible and preserving the precious treasury to go on and test another target. The ones with the yellow have returned zones of alteration, sniffs of alteration and mineralization, which we need to go back, remodel, and we'll probably go back and drill some additional holes. And the ones in red have come back with alteration, suggesting we are absolutely in close proximity to where we need to be. So the thesis has been essentially validated. We've got the right rocks at the right age with the right alteration. We are just not yet drilled into the heart of one of these systems, but we've certainly got a lot of smoke in terms of favorable alteration and sort of low-grade mineralization, suggesting we're in the right part of the world. So we've got 4 of these zones, and we recently announced our Mundadu target, which returns some very exciting alteration, which we're going to be following up here shortly. So there's a whole series of these things, and going forward from this point, it's a 2-pronged approach. It's completing the first pass drilling over those green targets, but we're also doing a series of step-out holes on the targets that have returned favorable alteration, with the goal of being able to sort of vector to where we need to be. So we're ultimately doing sort of large, sort of 500-meter step-outs, and with the goal of building up that picture, what's going on underneath the sedimentary cover. And that's kind of the key here, is just getting that sorted before we drill that deeper, more expensive hole. But what we're doing here, we're essentially drilling holes for about $25,000, $30,000 each. And this is enabling us to test a lot of targets. And I've just got this in here to give you a flavor of the sort of targeting we're doing. So we've clearly got a zone of interesting interpreted magnetics. We've built up a nice geological model around that, and we're doing a series of these step-out holes in and around various features that have given us very encouraging alteration from the first pass drilling. So we're vectoring in and building up that 3-dimensional picture of what's going on at depth before we drill those deeper holes, looking for the porphyry. And I really just got this in here to sort of wrap up the New South Wales segment, just to give you a flavor of the geology. So I won't get into the details, obviously, of what we're looking at here, but for example, the top photograph here, we're getting veins of chalcopyrite. This is a copper-rich mineral. We're also seeing things like albite and veinlets of sort of quartz magnetite, and there's a lot of things in here that we're able to glean from these drill holes that are suggesting we are where we need to be. So we're really vectoring into hopefully what is one of these porphyry centers here. So that really sort of is the New South Wales story. I will just briefly touch on our second project, our Karen Gold project. So in this case, we're actually located up in far north Queensland. So we're about 4.5, 5 hours drive west of Cairns. And in this case, we're actually exploring for high-grade orogenic quartz vein targets. So these are typically gold-rich quartz veins. And we're doing this adjacent to one of Queensland or Australia's highest grade gold camps called the Croydon Goldfields. And Croydon, it's not a name that's particularly well known, but it's really a very historical gold mining camp that was mostly mined out in the the early 1900s. But these veins that the old timers were mining were very, very high grade. So the historical reports talk about grades of about 35 grams per ton, or about an ounce of gold. And that is the prize here, is identifying one of these Croydon style vein systems. So this was a project that was generated by also by Douglas Haynes, who did the targeting work in New South Wales. So there's a lot of great geoscience has gone into this. And a little bit like in New South Wales, I've got two maps here of the same scale. The one on the left is the regional magnetics flown by the government of Queensland. This was an airborne magnetic survey that was put out and for groups like ours to download and interpret and encourage ultimately investment in mining and exploration. And on the right-hand side, we've got a very simplistic geological map showing the key geological features. And if you look at those dashed red lines sort of towards the bottom of the screen there, that broadly represents the trend of these high-grade outcropping veins. And those yellow spots represent all the documented gold occurrences in the Croydon goldfields. So the key takeaway here is these veins disappear under that pale yellow, sort of mustard colored unit, which again is much younger sedimentary cover sitting on top of the prospective mineralized volcanic units. And the veins essentially disappear under the sedimentary cover. So what Douglas Haynes did was key here. By analyzing the regional magnetics, as on the left-hand side of the screen there, he recognized that there were these very dominant northwest trending structures, which he considered analogous with the Croydon goldfields. And it was that of which we ultimately formed a very soft joint venture here. So we currently have a 50% ownership of this project, and we're on our way to get to an initial 70% by spending $1 million, of which we're about halfway. So we're about $500,000 of short of getting a 70% interest in this. But ultimately, what we've got here is about 30 kilometers of very interesting features that trend northwest that Douglas considers as analogous to the Croydon goldfields, that's located further to the southeast here. So it's a very exciting opportunity. You know, in terms of you know, there's obviously nothing outcropping on surface. It's all masked by young sandy sedimentary cover. But ultimately, the prize here is drilling through that sedimentary cover and into hopefully one of these vein systems. So very exciting in that respect. And what we've done here, just to really wrap up, Karen, is it's really this is represents the regional magnetics in addition to regional magnetics flown by Inflection. So we flew 3,800 line kilometers at 50 meter spaced lines. We've developed 11 high priority drill targets, which we intend to drill here later in the year, as well as with our ongoing drilling in northern New South Wales. So sort of a two-pronged approach going forward: drilling in New South Wales and first pass drilling into our Karen Gold project here in Queensland. So if I could just sort of wrap up here, obviously we're focused on a fabulous mining-friendly jurisdiction in the form of Australia, and New South Wales and Queensland, all very very great places to explore and obviously encourage investment in mining exploration. We are truly targeting very, very large tier 1 scale porphyry copper gold systems. These are big targets in a belt of rocks that are known for very big mines. You know, we're exploring here, you know, 2 to 3 hours up a paved highway from Australia's biggest gold mine. We're not doing this on the other side of the world in a jurisdiction that's unknown. It is a very technically driven story, and you know, the gentlemen behind the targeting have been serially successful at finding very, very big mines in Australia. Key takeaway: 100% ownership. You know, very, very simple story in that respect. No underlying joint ventures in New South Wales. So very clean, simple story. And to really just finalize, we're aggressively drilling. You know, we are using the drill to aggressively target big systems that have never been drilled before. So we believe if we are successful with the drill and having that portfolio approach to this, you know, really tilts the odds of success in our favor. But if we are successful, then we think there's potential to really move the needle in a material way. So it's a very exciting program, and with that, I will leave it there.
All right, thank you. Please send in your questions. Just go to the questions pane and drop that down, and you should be able to get some messages over to us. What have you done differently than others to identify the new targets in New South Wales?
So we really took the leap and been generating new targets under the cover. So the vast majority of the exploration that's been completed has been in the southern part of the belt, where the prospective geology is outcropping. And if I were to show you a map of all the drill holes drilled in New South Wales, essentially the lower part of the screen, or the southern part of the belt, would be almost black with drill holes. But that northern and covered extension of the belt is really underexplored. There is a scatter of holes throughout the district, throughout that greater belt, but very, very few have actually drilled into key parts that we're drill testing. In fact, none of the targets that we've developed have been drilled before. So that's the big one. But I think just the advent of the new data, the regional magnetic data, that's really improved things. We also flew, and I didn't talk about this, but we also flew our northern New South Wales targets with our own regional magnetics spaced at 100-meter space lines, which has given us a higher level, much higher resolution data over each individual target. I think that really, generating our own data is a key part of this targeting. And then the other thing that springs to mind is we're doing what we call a green rock study. Now, despite the name, it's actually a very complex study where we're actually analyzing very specific minerals, specifically a mineral called epidote and chlorite, to look at the specific ratios of metals in those minerals. And we can use that to basically identify where we believe we are in the greater system. So we're working in conjunction with the University of Tasmania, who's one of the leading groups that's using this sort of technology, and it's very cutting edge. It's been employed by a lot of the major miners, specifically targeting these porphyry systems in different parts of the world. So I think really, at a high level, it's really just a lot of really good geoscience that I think separates us from the crowd, as well as targeting that northern extension of the belt that hasn't been explored. And we really consider ourselves sort of first movers in that respect.
What is the depth of the sedimentary cover at the Karen Gold Project?
Yeah, no, great question. It's a bit of an unknown. I mean, we're testing areas that have never been drilled before. There are some historic water bores that drilled by farmers, mostly for cattle and things like that are pointing sort of around 100 meters, 100 meters, 150 meters, things like that. But it's going to be somewhere in that range. But until we drill those holes, we don't really know. But that's exploration. We'll know fairly quickly.
How has technology changed and helped with your exploration compared with people who might have attempted to explore here years ago, I guess, in both places?
Yeah, so I mean, I've sort of referred to my first answer. I mean, I think that the high resolution regional magnetics, that's really given us a window through the sedimentary cover that, obviously a few years ago only really occurred in very patchy sort of little windows of data that had been collected previously. So the survey that was flown by the government of New South Wales really was a game changer, and that's frankly what Douglas Haynes jumped upon and built this beautiful interpretive geological map and model of the key volcanics under the cover. But as I also mentioned, we're doing these green rock studies that in conjunction with the University of Tasmania as well. That's relatively new technology. And and I guess the other thing I would just mention, which is we're using very, very old technology, is we're using this mud rotary drilling. It's this old, very, very cost-effective exploration drilling, where mostly technology used for drilling water bores, and this is technology been around forever. but we're using that with a sort of a modern twist, whereby we're just using that to get down to the bedrock, but then the same drill transitions into doing diamond drilling at depth. And although it's an old technology, we put a new twist on it, and that's proving to be quite effective.
Thank you. Stu?
Yeah, thanks for the update, Alistair. I guess hard to ignore today. I guess the result you might be looking after is, E79 had a big hit in Australia, and would that be a great result from your end? If, virgin exploration ground targeting, nice, intersection.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously geographically quite distinct and geologically as well. But yeah, look, I think it's obviously wonderful for the exploration business, and I think that's really just a reminder to everybody that there's still a lot of great discoveries to be made, and obviously great for those guys. We believe we're doing something quite unique as well, breaking new ground. I mean, we're arguably doing greenfields exploration here, but with a drill. So yes, obviously fabulous news for everybody involved.
Yep, great. And then the recent financing, was there any, you've talked about any new investors that came in, or did existing shareholders support it strongly?
Yep. Yeah, so we had a lot of support from existing shareholders, including RCF, which they maintain their 10% position. But we also had, most notably, Crescat. Crescat came into this round, and we've had a number of conversations over the last 18 months, I guess, with Quentin Henney, and so he'd been very familiar with the story, and I guess been watching what we've been doing and whatnot. So yes, Crescat came in, and we also had a couple of other high net worth gentlemen that came in as well, which we're very, very happy to have on board. But yeah, well supported all round, and I think it's fairly unusual to have quite a large number of institutional investors at this stage of an exploration company.
Yeah, that's good. And then how much drilling, or how many holes have been drilled across your properties? Not necessarily the ones you have still, but the ones you might have dropped as well.
Yeah, so we've drilled 46 holes. We've drilled just over 10,000 meters to date. Drilling is ongoing. I mean, we basically, apart from a break over the Christmas holidays, we've ultimately been drilling pretty much non-stop. So there's a number of other holes that we are going to release to the market here shortly. But no, it's all about the drilling, Stuart, and we think it's a fairly unusual story in that respect. Drilling lots of holes into early stage targets.
Yeah, and then how are the assay labs going in this part of Australia?
So that's it is a problem for ourselves and everybody, but it does appear to be the same for everybody. But yeah, it's realistically it's 6 to 8 weeks now turnaround and getting assays, and we are using a portable we call an XRF gun, which gives us sort of certainly indications, not necessarily of gold or silver, but certainly we can get a feel of whether things are mineralized or not. But yeah, it's a problem for the industry in Australia, well, globally, really. All the labs are backed up right now. But yeah, it's about a 6 to 8 week turnaround on actual assays. But the one thing I will also add is that with these porphyry systems, they're quite distinctive, and I think we'll feel quite comfortable. We know we're onto something special just by visually inspecting the core. I mean, that's a slippery slope to go down, but certainly, when we start seeing large amounts of chalcopyrite and bornite and things like that, then we'll have a fair degree of comfort and not necessarily need assays in hand to do immediate sort of step out drilling. I think we're confident in what we'll see, that we can get straight into it.
Yeah, well, it's good to have the XRF gun to help guide the next kind of drill target locations, etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I'll pass to Adam.
Thank you. Alistair, question for you. Can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
Great, great. So the targets that you guys have drilled and have come up, without seeing the kind of alteration that you were looking for, how has that changed your interpretation from the geophysics to the to the expected geology?
Absolutely. So overall, the geology is held together. It is pretty much as interpreted. There are a number of specific features where we've drilled a couple of holes into them and come back with very negative results. But for example, maybe we're targeting a mag high and we've come back with a very fresh, highly magnetic diorite, for example. So we've got a lot of the key components, but just obviously lacking the key alteration of mineralization. But yes, I mean, it's a bigger discussion, but the model is constantly evolving. There's sort of a learning loop based on the results that we get. So we're constantly tweaking our model ever so slightly as we go and learning from every drill hole, both on a belt scale and very much on a target scale. So every hole we drill, we'll build that into the model, particularly the depth of the cover. Once we really put a pin in exactly how deep that cover is, we can then tweak the magnetics a little bit to take that into consideration, as well as if we're hitting the right volcanics as modeled, and great. If not, then we'll relook at it. And I think that's highlighted a little bit by the if you recall, there was a map there with the yellow icons where we've got sort of sniffs of alteration and mineralization, but not quite as modeled. And those are the ones that we're probably going to go back and tweak, or we are tweaking, in fact, with a goal of maybe drilling one or two more holes, or not, as the case may be.
Mm-hmm. And when you hit bedrock, what are some of the key indicators that you're looking for, that you're at least within striking distance of either a porphyry or an IOCG?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the obvious answer to that is straight into mineralization. I mean, we are modeling some of these targets to essentially outcrop at the base of the sediments. But ultimately, yeah, we're looking for, if we're not hitting mineralization straight away, we're looking for favorable alteration, such as, we're seeing, for example, in our Trangie target, large areas of albite, so this albidic flooding. Without getting into the details, that's very indicative of what you'd see outboard of one of the Cadia deposits, for example. Or we're seeing a lot of like quartz epidote, propylitic alteration, but we can certainly see that often with quartz veins with magnetite, for example. I mean, there's a whole host of things that we can get into, but ultimately we're just using those short intervals of core to really build up that three-dimensional picture where we believe we are in our model. So each of the target, they've got their own unique geological model, and that model gets tweaked every time we drill a hole.
And the model revisions that you guys have made, have they resulted in generating new additional targets or eliminating targets that you thought were attractive but hadn't yet drilled?
Have we eliminated any? So no, I don't think we believe the model has not really eliminated any. We've very much killed some of the targets with the drill, walked away, and we've dropped the exploration licenses, but no, nothing that springs to mind in terms of being able to walk away from them. I think if anything, the opposite is true, where we've got favorable alteration, but we haven't perhaps hit the mineralization as we would perhaps have hoped. We've sort of that has sort of pointed us towards analogous features that go back and require additional drilling. So it's an evolving story. It's not like we've drilled into some of the key targets and said, oh, absolutely, we're in the wrong age rocks. Certainly the core interpretation of the key set of volcanic rocks is correct as we originally modeled it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, let me pass it on to Erdi, see if he has any questions for you.
Thank you. So you mentioned you guys generated several targets, and in the first pass you are gonna test them with 2 to 3 drill holes.
Yep.
I'm wondering if these are like just to take it or kill it, just to test the targets.
Yeah, that's a key part of the strategy here, is being able to walk away. And you know, we've made a real point of being disciplined about this. I mean, ultimately, we're looking for something quite large, which has a large halo or alteration footprint. And if we're not seeing that within those, you know, 2 to 3 holes, then absolutely, we've tested the thesis. The thesis failed, and we will walk away. And the key is, as I say, is walking away and using those funds and those extra drill meters to drill test more targets. So yes, it is a little bit of a probabilistic exercise, but we believe having such a large number of these targets really tilts the odds of success in our favor. And I think it's fair to say that if we'd come out the gate and said, we have 1 or 2 targets and we want to go and raise the capital and we want to test them, I mean, the odds are very high that you will fail. You know, I can say that quite confidently, but having such a large number of these really, I think that sort of separates us. And it's a quite unusual and bold strategy for a junior exploration company, and it's something that we're quite proud of.
So can we say that you guys are narrowing down the targets, or at the same time you will be prospecting for generating new targets? What is the balance there?
So going forward, it's a 2-pronged approach. So there's essentially we're finishing the first pass phase of holes over the balance of the target. So there was approximately 25 holes planned for the targets, which we haven't released as yet. And then there is a series of step-out holes on targets that have returned encouraging alteration and mineralization so far. So it's a sort of a 2-pronged approach. And then I guess furthermore to your comment or question, you know, there is a little bit of targeting that's going on elsewhere, and I guess that's sort of it comes back to the earlier question. I mean, you know, we are sort of learning a little bit from what we're doing in terms of what we're doing with the drill, and I think you'll see there's probably some new targets as well that are going to come out of this bigger exercise and our greater geological understanding of the belt under the cover. So yes, it's an evolving process, but really it's about the step out holes and that first pass program, which we will complete shortly.
Do you have a number for me for the average depth of interest for these drill holes?
So the sedimentary cover, it's less than 200 meters generally, and that's a bit of a sweeping generalization. But you know, I think you know, probably our most interesting targets are around about 180 meters down through the sediments. So it's not insignificant. But ultimately, we're looking for something very, very big. I think if we were chasing something small, you know, it probably wouldn't work. But chasing these big porphyry systems, you know, we're quite comfortable drilling through this shallow cover, and ultimately using this mud rotary drill to get down to the sedimentary cover. It's a very, very cost-effective way of drilling, and you know, we're not taking any samples as we go. It's just purely, it's young, it's post-mineral, it's very little geological interest. So we can blast through that sedimentary cover very cost-effectively.
Thank you. Campbell?
Sure. Is the mine to the east, Triton, of you producing, and at what grade, tonnage, and all-in sustaining costs?
Gosh,
well, sorry,
Triton's,
west. Yes, he says west.
Yeah. So Triton's the one type of deposit we're not actually actively targeting. So that is a sort of more of a massive sulfide type deposit. So geologically, it's quite different. Geographically, it's quite located relatively close to where we are, but geologically quite different. So it's not something we've really spent a lot of time looking at. I know on the map it looks like it's in our backyard, but it's actually geologically it's a long ways away. So we've not really been looking at Triton, to be perfectly honest. We're more focused on the porphyry deposits that occur further to the south, specifically Northparkes and Cadia, and Evolution Mining's Lake Cowal operation, which is more of an epithermal type deposit. But you know, these types of deposits we're targeting, they're generally considered you know, quite low grade in terms of the big picture scheme of things, but they're generally very big, and they generally make good mines, especially in this part of the world. So Northparkes, for example, is I don't know how many years it's been in operation, but a long time, and same with Cadia. You know, these are big, long life, but low grade operations that ultimately the majors are actively targeting. But Triton specifically is not something we're actively targeting.
What is the thickness of the overburden or depth to bedrock?
Yeah, so it's you know, as I said before, I think it's about, you know, 200, less than 200 meters. You know, 180 meters, something like that is probably a good average number. But we've been pleasantly surprised how consistent it has been. I mean, there's obviously a few notable exceptions. Things have got a little bit deeper than our modeling, and some that are a little bit shallower. But for the most part, we've been very quite accurate with our modeling, and that's probably one of the nice surprises that's come out of this. And you know, one of the big unknowns before we initiated this drill program was you know, obviously how thick is the cover, but also you know, how practical is it to drill through this? So it's a bit unknown. Are we going to have issues, sort of, you know, more drilling mechanical issues? Can we actually drill through it without losing our water circulation, which is a key component of drilling? And are we going to hit, you know, sandy horizons or gravel horizons that are going to be problematic and things like that? But for the most part, it's been relatively straightforward, and that's been a big positive surprise for us.
Excellent. Adam, I understand you have a follow-up question.
Yeah, thanks, Campbell. Quick question, Alistair. So with the targets that you've had early success with, at some point is the business plan to option those targets out, or JV them? What's the thought process there?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's something we talk about a lot. You know, what is the strategy here? I mean, ultimately, we're exploring for things that the major miners want to develop. I mean, we are a pure exploration company. We're not a mining company. We don't have the skill sets to be a mining company. So we would like to sell the assets to a major miner, and that is a core part of the strategy. Now, the bigger question is when or how you do that. And I think it's fair to say we're comfortable taking that early technical risk to test these targets and you know, make the discovery, hopefully, and drill off the projects to a certain degree. But you know, I couldn't sit here with a straight face and say, you know, as a junior explorer, going to drill this thing off. Drilling off these big porphyry deposits at depth is really something that the major miners you know, would really be doing, not necessarily a junior explorer. So at some point or other, we're probably looking for some sort of partnership with a major miner in some form or other. But yes, it's a good question. Something we talk about a lot is you know, at what point do you start those discussions?
And just to follow up on that, the targets that I saw in red, those were ones that you've already had initial success with, where you've hit some alteration that you're excited about?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've come back with alteration that you would typically see in the vicinity of some of these porphyry systems further to the south. So you know, we've got a number of people on the team that are got a lot of experience looking at these types of deposits. So they've worked at them. For example, Stuart Smith worked at Northparkes. We had Alan Wilson that did his PhD at Cadia and things like that. So we've got a lot of good technical guys that are ultimately very familiar with these types of alteration, and you know, we're very encouraged with what we're seeing. So we're comfortable we're on the right path. We just need a little bit of time and luck and whatnot to hopefully get a hole into the hearts of one of these systems. But certainly the alteration we're seeing is pointing us in that direction, although we've not yet drilled that big hole.
So the idea is to once you've got a target or a number of targets that you're fairly confident, then you're willing to drill deeper to try to get into the guts of one of these things to get the attention of somebody of a major miner to option that particular target out or whatever structure you're looking to put together.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, right now we're essentially, we've pricked the bedrock with the diamond drill hole. We're doing the sort of the step out holes on those red targets, building up that picture of what the underlying geology looks like, and at that point, once we're comfortable, we're vectoring to where we need to be. Then we can take the risk with the deeper hole. But a key point is any of these holes that we're drilling right now have the ability to be that 1,000-meter hole. If we drill straight into the top of one of these systems, we're just going to keep drilling. So that's a key point I always forget to mention. But it's any of these holes have the potential to be drilled to great depth if we're in the right rocks.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Oh, one more question. Could other geophysical methods enhance the pinpointing of the targets?
Yeah. This is a recurring question that we have in-house. So there's a little bit of discussion around that in terms of what, if anything, could be used to look through, particularly the sedimentary cover. So the sedimentary cover is not insignificant. We were debating quite recently about using sort of IP, electrical type geophysics, to get a charge into the ground and look for targets that way. But we're probably going to be experimenting a little bit with that over the coming weeks. Actually, we're going to do some test lines over a number of targets, and with the goal here, just seeing if we can have some success with the IP method. And there's some new types of IP, without getting into the weeds, that we've been encouraged to try. We've got a very experienced consultant geophysicist, which we rely on, and he's been giving us a nudge to use this particular type of IP. So we're going to experiment a little bit with that and see if that works. But it's again an ongoing discussion, and I think if we get a little bit more success with the drill, I think that we can potentially experiment with other methods as well.
Okay. I want to thank everyone for your great questions, and moreover for tuning in. The replay will be available in about an hour at amvestcapital.com/replays, and you also get a follow-up email. Please share your feedback. You'll be queued for that when you log out here, and an email as well. The comments we'll get to Alistair, and they're most welcome. With that, I'll close it back to you, Alistair, to give us a final close. But thank you for talking to us today.
Great, thank you, Campbell, and thank you everybody for taking the time out of your day to listen. And if you've any questions, please don't hesitate to obviously reach out through Amvest or to me directly. All our contact details are on our website and social media and anything like that. So please don't hesitate to give me a call directly if you have any specific questions. This was obviously very high level, but happy to get into the weeds if that's what you require. But thank you very much again for your time.
Thank you. All the best. Good night.
Thanks.